comment, and please know that the guidelines expressed earlier by Mrs. Collins still apply. So, seeing none, we're going to move into the first two items, which are the second reading for policy number 005 and policy number 302. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we're going to move those to the board for approval. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. There was,
No, I went out to look for it. I couldn't find one.
oh, yeah, there was only one from the beginning. That's my fault.
I'm
then.
so sorry. I apologize.
I'm Dawn Berger, Bedminster Township, and I'd like to address the board on the proposed revision to policy 311, specifically on the section addressing suspension of furloughs of professional staff. The new language that bases the furlough process on performance evaluation ratings over the past practice of seniority is truly appalling. Although I understand new laws make this policy language legal, I believe it is deeply flawed and not well thought out and has no place in Penridge. The only perceived benefit of such language by the average taxpayer may look to be financial, but make no mistake about it that the first time the district tries to furlough a teacher based on this performance rating, the full strength of the Pennsylvania Teachers Union will be upon us. So, while the district solicitors may be behind and for this new wording of this policy, let's be clear that the only group to be making money by this district will be the lawyers. This policy will not save the taxpayers a dime. Again, while this policy's language may be legal, it has no place in Penridge. It is not good for kids, pure and simple. Because in the end, what is bad morale of the teacher is bad for kids. This policy language is meant to cause fear in our teachers. It is meant to weaken their union. It is meant to divide our schools. Is this in the best interest of our students? Again, make no mistake about it, this policy will impact our students. Teachers will no longer feel safe standing up for what they believe is best for their students when their administrator can knock the ratings down for any reason, even personal. Teachers will become automated and teach to the test. Teachers will no longer feel safe taking risks in teaching methods because in their evaluation process, test scores will matter a lot. What this order of suspension policy fails to recognize is that the performance evaluation ratings are flawed. There is too much room in the scoring for subjective opinion of administrators. Buildings inequity puts large numbers of teachers at an unfair disadvantage. Do you really believe in this district that our worst teachers are all in one building, while all the best are in another? There is inequity across this district, and the playing field for all these teachers is uneven. Teachers in lower performing schools have lower ratings. Teachers of our most challenged students will often have lower scores. Why? Because those students' test scores reflect back on that teacher's performance ratings. The board needs to really take the time to fully understand all the implications of this proposed policy. Parents need to know how this policy will impact their kids. The witch hunt against teachers has to stop. The teacher bashing isn't productive and, again, hurts kids. These wonderful teachers dedicate their lives to teaching children and deserve our support. They deserve a say in this process, and they deserve the respect of the Penridge community and school board. Please remember to always keep what's best for kids in all you're dealing as an esteemed member of the school board. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else? Seeing none. So we'll go again to the first two policies that are second reading, 005 and 302. Are there any questions or concerns? We'll move those to the board agenda. The next policy for first reading is 105, curriculum, and Dr. Wyorka, would you? Oh, I'd just like to first add before we go there that these policies are based on, the revisions of these policies come down from the PSBA and are based on changes to law, school code, and case law. So thank you. Thank you. This is Dr. Wyorka.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. So policy 105 curriculum, there are minor revisions made to this policy to update the terminology for language instruction, educational program, and English language learners. So it's a minor change that relates to another policy that we'll be reviewing this evening.
Any questions? Oh, I just wasn't my agenda. Hold on. Here we go.
Ada,
Yes.
sorry, I was going to say something about that 302. That is on the 302, the employment of the superintendent and assistant superintendent. I don't know what the procedure would be, but as we were discussing, I would like to know which one takes precedence, the contract of the employee or the policy of the school district. So if we could get that clarification.
I think that needs to go to the solicitors, or Dr. Wywerka. So do we hold this up then?
Can I hear the question one more time?
When I was reading the policy today, I was wondering because in the section 1, in the SC 1073 and 1077, it says that the number of days is 90 days prior to the expiration date of the superintendent's or an assistant superintendent's term of office. The board has to have a motion to approve or notify them if they're going to be retaining them. But that language is different from what is in a current contract that we have. And these employees have their own individual contracts. So I was just curious for myself, which one would take precedence? Would it be the employee's contract that was negotiated with an attorney, or would it be this policy that we have?
Okay, we'll get that clarification.
Thank you.
So that will not move to the agenda then until we get that. And if you get the clarification before the board meeting, would that be okay?
Yes, I was just curious. It seemed odd to me.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just, okay, just checking. Okay. So back to 105 curriculum, and these have been up since Monday, so hopefully the board members have looked at these and came with questions. Seeing none, we'll move to the next one. Policy number 138, language instruction, and I would like to add here that I'm sorry, never mind, different policy. Okay, so, did we get to this one? No, Dr. Wywerka.
Okay, so policy 138,
Oh, yes, but if I can interrupt, this is the one I was thinking of. It says an LIEP, but that is not an individualized educational plan, just to clarify that. It's an instructional plan. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you, Dr. Wywerka.
right, so the previous title of this policy was Limited English Proficiency Program. And that title is going to be changed to Language Instruction Educational Program for English Learners. So the only thing that's missing on this policy is that title change. All the other changes are on here, so we'll make sure that that gets updated in the title. And as Mrs. Miller had mentioned, this is not an IEP, although when you shorten that, it looks like it's an LIEP. So they just made it more confusing for us.
Well, I just wanted to.
So you're right.
To clarify that, because that's always adds additional services.
So I'm wondering why they chose that
I don't know.
It caught,
acronym.
it caught my eye.
I guess you're running out of
It
acronyms,
caught my
but
eye.
anyway.
So that was good to point out that it is language instruction is what the I stands for. So this policy, as you can see, has major changes because they've changed the terminology. The summary that I have here is that this policy was updated based on the new requirements and terminology of the Every Student Succeeds Act, as well as recent federal and state guidelines. The former term limited English proficiency has been replaced by LIEP, and the term English language learner has been replaced by English learner. The term English as a second language, ESL, is still used in the context of ESL certified staff. However, the type of instruction is now referenced as English language development instruction. So it's a little bit confusing, but if you read through the policy, really they outlined more specific requirements of this program now for students. So there are some specific requirements now that must be part of this instructional program for students. Are there any questions for me about that policy?
And again, this is first reading. Okay, we'll move on to the next item.
Yes.
Policy number 239, foreign exchange students. Dr. Wajorka, would you take control of this? Yes. Again, it looks like very minor changes.
Yes, policy 239 was revised to clarify that foreign exchange students who are accepted for attendance by the board should comply with the school district's enrollment process, including the administration of the home language survey to determine if the student should be identified as an English learner. So you can see a theme here, making sure that students are getting the services that they need based on their language. So that's a minor change to that policy.
Any questions, concerns? Let's see.
I just have a quick question. How would that section of this policy, the district shall administer home language survey to foreign students enrolling in district schools. So I'm particularly interested in how this affects the GAP program, the German exchange, where the students are here for 3 weeks, basically. That's, run through the German department and the state department as well. Would this apply to them?
We would have to get some clarification on that. Did you say it's a 3-week
It's
program?
basically a 3-week program.
I can't imagine entering a program for a 3-week.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so, I mean, certainly Dr. Wajorka can get clarification, but I think that's
Right.
pushing it a little
I
bit.
do too. That's why I'm asking the
Yeah.
question, because the title of this is
By the
foreign
time they were,
exchange students.
by the time they were identified and had an instructional
They
plan,
could go on.
no, an instructional plan developed, it would be,
Yeah,
Well, and that is a packed 3 weeks that they're here, and
Right.
it goes by so
absolutely,
fast,
absolutely.
so
But this
yeah.
does not make any
Right. And I think
differentiation.
it probably should, I guess.
Yeah. That's what I'm looking for. I think maybe that's some differentiator that it would not apply to terms
Short-term.
less than
Yeah.
X or something.
I think I can clarify that, just only because this came up in one of my intermediate meetings, is that this is intended for those that are applying to be admitted to your school,
Okay.
not that are just visiting. I would say more the GAP program is more of an exchange to visit your school, where this is
Yeah.
intended to be, I want to be admitted to your school,
Transfer.
whether that's 6 months, 3 months, but I'm going to be admitted, I'm going to be a tenured student.
Right. Do you think there's enough? I'm sorry. Do you think there's enough clarity in the policy, Dr. Price?
I think I'm sorry, I was going to say, I think where we're covered, and I'm just looking at this, is number 3, delegation of responsibility, because there it does talk about eligibility of exchange students applying for admission to district schools.
Yes.
So I think that echoes
Okay.
what we were taught.
That's what I was looking for, where in next. Okay, I'm good then.
and again, we keep our policies, as a policy guy, we keep them more general instead of.
No, I'm good then,
Right.
Mrs. Miller.
All right, moving on to the last one. Policy number 311. Dr. Wajorka?
Okay, this is policy 311. It was previously titled suspensions/furloughs. It's now been titled reduction of staff. And as I said, the title has been changed because the policy now includes content related to elimination of positions in addition to the suspensions and furloughs. As a result, we have another policy, number 310, which is titled abolishing a position. So 310 would be eliminated because that is now being included in this policy. And just something that I wanted to note that I'll read here. Although the changes regarding suspensions in Act 55 were effected on November 6, 2017, they do not supersede pertinent provisions of collective bargaining agreements currently in effect. So all collective bargaining agreements negotiated or renewed after November 6, 2017 must comply with the provisions governing suspensions as stated in Act 55 that is now outlined in this policy. And what this, some of the major changes in this policy, you can see there are quite a few. It does talk about economic furloughs, but it very specifically outlines criteria for economic furloughs, and there are very stringent guidelines that must be met if you're looking at economic furloughs. So that is one major change. It does talk about the order of suspension of professional employees, which is another significant change, and that's where it talks about professional employees within each area of certification would be suspended based on the two most recent employee performance ratings. Professional employees having the same rating history would be suspended in reverse order of their seniority. So that is where they're adding the language about professional employee evaluations. And I think those sort of summarize the major changes, but you can see every change that's outlined on that policy.
So when you say that this policy change was necessitated by a change in the law,
Yes.
do we have any leeway to not accept a policy or to change our policy, or is this, I mean, it's really something that's required by the law?
It's been reviewed by the solicitor,
Okay.
and it's come from PSBA with the changes made as per those legal recommendations. So, I mean, we could go back to the solicitor if you wanted to, but it has been reviewed.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
That doesn't really answer the question of if it's if everything in here is required or not. I mean, I understand that it was reviewed, but is it all required to be in accordance with Act 55?
What is in here is in accordance with Act 55, so the question, is it required? Again, we would want to get a legal opinion about that.
Well, if you could, I think it would be helpful to have the legal opinion that would let us know if there's any flexibility or if this is something that we are absolutely required to do by the law.
Any other questions or clarifications required? Okay,
I have the same
Sure.
question, yeah, just what's legally required.
Okay, so Dr. Wyorka will provide those answers. And then, if that needs to be addressed, we can bring it back to committee. If the legal interpretation of whether
Mhm.
this needs to be strictly adherent to the law,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
So I mean, this is only the first reading, so
Correct,
would it have to
correct.
go all the way back to a first reading, or could it be
I-
the second reading?
I think it doesn't have to go, if there's major changes, doesn't have to go back to a first reading.
Oh, it does, okay,
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure.
That's what I thought, yeah,
Okay.
I thought, but I'm getting a consensus from everyone. Okay, any other questions, concerns from board directors? Would you like to make another comment?
So Mrs. Miller, so will this be for a vote on May 14th or not?
Well, it's still first reading.
So,
Okay, so it would be for a vote as a first reading then?
It doesn't go to the agenda, I believe, does it? First reading? We don't vote on
No.
it until,
so I think to clarify, if we have questions, I will take it back. I will take it back and get that opinion that we're seeking. If it doesn't change any of the content, then I think it can go to second reading.
I mean,
If it
first reading.
If it changes the content, it would need to go back to first reading.
Well, but you're gonna get the questions before May 14th.
Right.
You're gonna get answers to
Right.
that.
Yes.
Right. Actually, I'm thinking back to the other one. I didn't have any motions this last meeting, but the meeting before, I believe I did have the first reading. So I think you're right, too.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're right. Right. But in between, we did it until we got to the second one, yeah, because there was a month in between. Okay, then you'll come back with the answers. Okay, any public comment? Yes?
I mean, again, I'm not a solicitor, but I'm familiar with the law in education because I am an educator. I'll be transparent on that, and I am vested interest in this topic. but the law allows for districts to take this option. It does not require you to. So please, please look at the law carefully and do what you think is best for your children in the district and for your teachers. If this goes through the way it is written, I don't believe your teachers are going to be very happy, and your union's not going to be happy, and it's really going to affect your climate. It is underhanded. I can't believe there's no teacher sitting here upset about this, you know, because it is upsetting. It is a slippery, slippery slope you are going down. Think about this. There are many children in this district that are economically challenged, academically challenged. So now if I get any hand in what students I want in my room, I don't want them in there. Why? Because they're going to hurt me as a teacher and my ratings. Is that the climate you want your children to go to school in? Is it? It's terrible. It's not the way a school should be. We should not be graded and rated based on what one principal feels my job is, how well I do my job, and it should not decide whether I have a job. There are way more ways that we can evaluate our teachers and hold us accountable to those ratings, but I don't believe that that's the way you should decide who gets to keep their job and who doesn't. And that's just a small piece of the problem of that method. So again, please follow up and find out what the law really tells you have to do, and I don't believe you don't have to pass this. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no more comments, meeting adjourned.